had.
is from even, I'm ashamed, I think higher functioning, is that videotape? Lower functioning narrative or not necessarily?
He's higher functioning, so.
Oh, okay.
But he was videotaped and then the special education teacher was there and read everything and,
Yeah.
you know.
That's state assessment. State also says, hey, school districts, you need to have a local assessment in place. If you hear the terms, and I don't know what these acronyms, the foresight test, that is the local version of the PSSA. Another one, and these tests need to be approved by the state. Another one is study island benchmarks. That's your local tool to mirror what you think is going to happen when the kid takes the state test. I'll put it up there. Wonderful. And accommodations, a couple things parents, and I didn't know this till I got it. All right, you don't need to have a disability to get extended time on a PSSA. Everybody has the right to it. Some of the accommodations everybody has the right to. Now, you can't start the PSSA, go home that night and come in the next morning and finish it, but you can take 3 hours if you want. We don't encourage that, and a lot of times we will do more discouraging, but they have the right to take that as long as they would like.
Eric, can I let you know we have about 10 minutes?
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. Whoops. Okay, goals and objectives. All I did there is they need to be measurable. And this is something we train teachers a lot on, and you know what, I'm going to be honest with you. They are all over the place. But the key that you need to have, you need a condition, an action, an accuracy, and holding it over time. Let me give you a prime example. I instruct my teachers to do it this way. If it's a reading goal, given a whatever instructional level passage they are, what I'll do is bump it up a year, because it's a year contract. Given a certain passage, Johnny's going to answer 8 out of 10, 80%, of comprehension questions correctly for 3 consecutive trials. I'm telling you how well they have to do it, and for what period of time. Normally we progress monitor once every 2 weeks, so that's over a 6-week period. Once they reach that, goal's met, and then we just bump it up a grade level. And I need progress monitoring as evidence. That's the graph I'm bringing into the meeting that you should all be getting copies of too. You should be getting them every 9 weeks, some districts every 4.5 weeks. That little graph you get outside of the report card is the way they're making the goal, progress towards the goal. I saw something in your packet. I didn't know this to be true. We don't use short-term objectives in our IEPs unless it's a student with a more severe disability. Short-term objectives and benchmark, basically you take the large annual goal and you break it down in parts. At one time we were told we had to do that for every kid. I don't think you'll find us doing that, for most kids now, unless they have a more severe disability. Maybe a PASA type kid, but that's the short-term objective benchmarks. I see here it said that it must be included in the IEP, so I'll have to look that up. Sports for school personnel is the next page. Basically, how are we as a special education department going to train these regular ed kids, or these regular ed teachers, on how to work with our children when they're in the classroom? We give them what we call an IEP snapshot. If you ever hear them talk about an IEP snapshot, it basically it's a form that once we plug it into DARTS, it spits that information in a form. We don't feel that they need to know all of the information in the IEP, just the pertinent stuff. And regular ed teachers should have a copy of that, so they're aware of what the child's disability is and what ways that they can accommodate things. Specially designed instruction, probably one of the most important parts of the IEP. It's important because what it does is levels the playing field for your child. What do we need to put in place so they're playing on the same ball field, basically? And you'll see things like maybe a behavior support plan, maybe small group setting. And you'll see, if you look at your chart, I don't know what page you're on, but there's a frequency we have to put in there, how long it'll be. Frequency, location, beginning and end date. The beginning and end date is the same as the date on the front page of the IEP. Unless we add a specially designed instruction, mid-year as a revision, then we put the date that we put the specially designed instruction in there. Levels of playing field specific. And over all that. Related services, I've given you a list of common related services. Shouldn't see a TSS in there. You may see emotional support in there if the kid has a learning disability, and we have one of our IU staff coming in and maybe doing 120 minutes a month of social skills training. So emotional support may appear in there. Usually it's got to be time specific. If it's not time specific, I can't bill Access as a district to get reimbursed for some of that funding.
question.
Yeah.
This was something I really had a question on. Emotional support for my son was under related services, and then they moved it as a specially designed instruction, and I couldn't get a really good explanation as to why that was. Because he had 30 minutes twice a week under related services, and then it was moved to up to 30 minutes under specially designed instruction.
I'm not quite sure why they would have done that. I've never seen that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I would put it as a related service. Yeah, I'm not sure why. I would maybe put whatever I'm using in those emotional support sessions under the SDI. Maybe social stories you might see in the SDI. If there's a positive behavior support plan, we might put that in there. And maybe different behavioral techniques that I would use. Gifted, we have to address that in the IEP because a kid can be dual diagnosis. Just the difference in chapters. I answered that already. Yes, a student can be gifted and have an IEP. ESY, extended school year services. Kind of interesting. The state gives you all these guidelines to follow, but they put nothing in place to say, hey, here's a checklist of 8 questions you can ask, yes or no to. Oh, but they don't say you need to answer yes to 6 of them or to 4 of them. It's up to the IEP team to determine. Here are the 3 things I look at. First of all is the child's disability and what we call the Armstrong Target Group. Armstrong Target Group is a list of disabilities that are severe enough that if you have those disabilities, you generally just automatically qualify. Second thing I look at is the IEP goal data. Are they, when we assess them right before a break and right after a break, are they retaining the information or are they not? Recoupment and regression is what I look for. It's okay to have a little bit of a drop off, but if it's a very large drop, then we need to look at. And I need to issue you a NORUP, Notice of Recommended Educational Service, February 28th every year if I'm deeming you eligible.
Do you have to request an ESY as a parent, or does the school just send out this notice saying we're going to recommend you? Is it more up to the parent to request it, or is it up to the district to?
District's got February 28th. They got to make a decision.
Okay.
But a parent can request it if they can justify it.
Yes, and be careful. I'm not going to say be careful. I'm sorry.
You already did. It's out there.
And it's on video too.
Don't feel that you're entitled to some special program because you have this special child that
Right.
all I need to show from my end, this is my understanding, I haven't been down this road yet, but if I can prove that I have a program in place to offer you that's going to address one or two of the IEP goals, I'll do that. You aren't entitled to a special program for your child. Now, you can do that and maybe you can get the district to agree to that, but you aren't, in my opinion, you're not entitled to that. And a lot of it is some of those programs can be very expensive. So yeah, no, the district's responsibility to make an extended school year. And it's not summer school. Summer school is when a kid fails a class and they need to make that credit up. That's summer school. Least restrictive environment, the next page. Where is the student receiving the services? Always start with the regular education in mind. The box, which is like the second to last page, they're the Gaskins questions. By the way, tell Mr. Whitehead that he should come in and give you a presentation on the Gaskins settlement.
I keep telling her to call him. He wants to
You
get-
tell him Mr. Briggs recommended that.
All right.
I'm sure you'll get a phone call saying, thank you.
He'll come hunt me down. Questions that we need to answer as an IEP team in this box on page 12 to 14. And we put those answers to the questions in the 2 boxes. The gas and make sure we use supplementary aids and services toolkit. I'll eventually get this clicker correct. Levels of services. You're going to hear them say you're getting itinerant, supplemental, or full-time, and then the type of service you're getting. Okay? Itinerants, 80 to 99% regular education classroom. Supplementals between 2179, less than 20. Why is that important? Every 6 years, we get, I'm actually in November 5th, 6th, 7th, the state's coming in and they review your special education programs. And one of the things they look for is LRE. When I was in Canton, I did it last year, they dinged me for 2 things. LRE, what does that mean? Mr. Briggs, you don't have enough of your kids at the itinerant level of service. 55% of the kids, I just made a percentage up, need to be there. You only have 52. So now I got to sit down and figure, how can I move 8 of these kids? And I gotta call parents and say, oh, by the way, we're changing the way we deliver instruction. And I always pass the buck on to the state, and call the state if you'd like to, but it's a program change that I need to do. The other thing we got dinged on, which is common in a small district, is dropout rate. Up there, we only had 10 kids. As soon as one of them or two of them drop out, you're below the, whatever the threshold is, so you gotta write a dropout prevention program. But they're common in a lot of the districts around here because it doesn't take many kids for the smaller ones. Once I have an annual review, can it change? This is the revision process. The last page, I don't know, is the pen, we call it the pen data page. Basically, it confuses parents, but that's the percentage. That's where we come up with the percentage that your child's in regular education. Usually you'll see in the second box, it's a 7-hour school day and the amount of time they spend in regular ed. And then the third box will spit out a percentage there. And the bottom box just gives you an example of how they come up with the calculation. Questions, comments?
Yeah. How much power as parents do we have over the amount of special education that our children are receiving? Like that people at the blast recommended so many hours a week, and like how much power do we actually have over that?
To see, a couple things you want to look at. I'm assuming you're going from EI to school age?
Yes.
Okay, couple things, and I don't know all the differences, but number one, EI rules and regs are different. They play by a little bit different rule book than regular ed, or than school age. Meaning a kid may be, speech and language is the one I like to use, be eligible for the speech and language support services at EI. And when they get to kindergarten, there's some checklist that speech people use that says they need to know these sounds or whatever the case may be. And if they meet that criteria, they may not require them to take the service. Now again, remember, as a parent, it's important to know the door never completely shuts. Okay, they may not need it in kindergarten, first grade, but they're not developing those sounds in second grade if they need to, ask your school district.
Okay.
Yeah, and you have a lot to say. I mean, you're part of the IEP team, so, and ask those questions. Ask those questions.
Never be afraid to speak up. You always have to be that voice.
Yeah.
The most they're gonna do is tell you no, so always, ask.
I don't know if this is where you're going
still do
about
is
it.
call the
For
police on
instance,
you.
like the specially designed instructions, you can ask for specific things for your child in the specially designed instructions, like for instance, handwritten notes, if they have trouble getting